Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 3 review of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So last time I continued my 2024 Summer Special with my review of Season 1 Episode 7 of the new Scooby Doo movies. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And obviously, in my last review, I did talk about why I consider Hassle in the Castle to be the third episode and not the second one, because there's a lot of confusion based on that because of the way Warner Brothers releases those two episodes. I go more in detail in the previous review, so if you want to know my thoughts on why I think that way, you can check out the previous review. But to sum it up, I basically said because the title card is different and because I have there's Scooby Doo websites that say that this episode was produced second. I believe it was produced second. It has a different title card than the previous two. This is actually the first episode to use the gang running under the title in place as the title card, as that would be the title card from this episode until the end of Where Are You? So that's why I consider Hassle in the Castle the third episode. So if you want to know my thoughts on why that, why I think Hassle in the Castle is the third episode, Captain Color is the second one, you can check out the previous review. But of course today I will be giving my updated thoughts on Season 1 Episode 3 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? And I will be covering Season 1 Episode 3 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Titled Hassle in the Castle, which was released on September 27th, 1969. The short synopsis of the episode is, after getting lost in the fog, the gang arrive on Haunted Isle, where they meet an unearthly ghost haunting an old abandoned castle. As per usual, I'll be watching Season 1 Episode 3 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? On the Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The Complete Series box set. I've talked about this box set plenty of times before, so if you want to know my thoughts on the special features and all that, you can go check out my Season 2 Episode 8 review. But yeah, it's a good box set. Definitely highly recommended to watch all the Where Are You episodes. It has everything you want, including the stupid fake third season, which I've already talked about plenty of times before, so I won't go into it here. But yes, anyways, as far as how this episode is received, from what I gather, I believe most fans aren't huge on this episode. There is a minority of people who seem to really like Hassle in the Castle, but for most people, Hassle in the Castle is not a highly regarded episode. And in my original review, Hassle in the Castle was the first episode that I considered pretty bad, and I think I rated it a 1 star out of 5. So, will my opinion change? Will it go up? Whether that be up to decent or up to good? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The episode begins with the Mystery Inc. gang out on the sea boating, and the weather turns a little bit gloomy, and we realize that originally, Fred, said the weather was nice when they started boating, but it became foggy and creepy and gloomy, and they accidentally run ashore on Haunted Isle. The island is the location of the Vasquez Castle, named after an evil pirate named Vasquez who sailed the seven seas in the year 1612, which had been abandoned for many years. We learn all this once they get inside the castle, and Fred talks about the painting or the on the wall of Vasquez the pirate. The gang wanders the beach until Scooby-Doo finds an old map that has a message trying to scare the gang away. And he found this when he saw a crab with the map on top of it, and we got a funny set piece of Scooby dealing with the crab. And then he gave the gang the map, and originally it showed, like it was just a normal old map, and then there was a message on the back. However, the Mystery Inc. gang, being the Mystery Inc. gang, are undaunted as they continue to the castle and search for clues, while a mysterious phantom in the shadows is watching them. Once they're inside the castle, Daphne and Velma start a discussion about a book that Velma read about trapdoors once. Daphne denies the thought of trapdoors being in a place like this, and in turn, she falls through a trapdoor in the floor, leading her to be separated from the gang. It's a good scene because it shows that Daphne gave Daphne a little bit of karma, because you should never be disbelieving of that kind of stuff, of trapdoors not being in an old place like this. But also, we get an introduction to the Phantom and his little laugh, and it spooks the gang a little bit, so I enjoy it.
I once read these old castles were loaded with traps. Oh, Velma, don't be silly. That only happens in movies. Daphne! Daphne!
Oh, what happened?
Daphne fell through a trap door.
Then the gang starts searching for Daphne, and soon Daphne lands in a separate room and swiftly dodges the ghost's little grasp and heads off to find the rest of the gang. Shaggy and Scooby Doo continue to search for Daphne with Velma and Fred, and then they come across a talking skull, which tells them where they need to go, because at some point, somehow, Shaggy and Scooby lose Fred and Velma for a little bit. And Shaggy even tells Scooby to stop whistling because it makes him nervous, but Shaggy was whistling too, so that's not fair to Scooby to say that. Come on, Shaggy, don't be a hypocrite. This talking skull never gets explained at all. We never find out how the skull is talking, and how it's responding to Shaggy and Scooby and giving them the directions. And where did he point them to go? We never find out what, because he has no hands, so... But it doesn't really matter because they become so terrified of the talking skull that they run into a different room. And then Shaggy states that he wished he had a ham sandwich to calm himself down. And then suddenly the ghost, for some reason, gives Shaggy a ham sandwich. It appears. And Shaggy is convinced that it's his imagination. He hopes his imagination will cut his sandwich in half, which it does, as an axe from one of the statues behind the table falls on the table and cuts it in half. Shaggy once again becomes terrified, so he and Scooby leave the room, but he comes back quickly for the sandwich, obviously, because he's Shaggy. And they continue to run until Daphne hits Shaggy on the head, thinking someone else was coming. But Jesus Christ, Daphne, you could have given Shaggy brain damage just by doing that. I know you were trying to protect yourself, but maybe wait until you know who's coming your way before you just bop them on the head like that. Thank God Shaggy didn't get any concussion or any sort of head damaged. And the gang were concerned too. Like, Daphne could have easily hurt Shaggy really bad in this scenario, so I'm really glad Shaggy is okay. I mean, I get why Daphne had it, but maybe be aware of who's coming down the corridor before you just fucking start throwing vases on top of people's heads. You know the rest of the gang are looking for you and are here. Don't just jump to conclusions, Daphne. So Velma, Fred, and Scooby finally find Shaggy and Daphne, and the gang are all back together, and they see the Phantom of Vasquez Castle for the first time for this episode. And the ghost gives them another warning, trying to scare them away. And then the gang chases the Phantom and tries to tackle him, but they fail, and to their horror, they see the Phantom walk through a solid wall. What's crazy about this is that Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby are the ones to chase after the Phantom, which shows how not really scary this Phantom is if Shaggy and Scooby are willing to chase after him too. And they're all convinced that the Phantom is real, and that the place is truly haunted. However, they're unable to leave since they're marooned, which is one of the reasons Fred gives for why they're not gonna leave. Shaggy's like, why don't we take his advice and clear out of this place? And Fred's like, no, we're not going. And and he said, no Phantom's gonna scare us away. Why does he want us off this island so bad? And we're marooned. And Shaggy buys the last explanation, but isn't convinced on the first two, which I totally understand why. Daphne finds the gang's first clue, which is an old key with an inscription saying this.
It says, second passage of the old bell.
They realize that the inscription is asking them to look in a book, and they go to the library. The gang finds the second passage of the old bell and discovers that the word catacombs is underlined. So they decide to head to the basement, which is where they believe the catacombs are, and use the key from the chest to unlock the door to the catacombs. Scooby is sent to survey the room before the rest of the gang enters, and Scooby does this little act of not wanting to do it, but Scooby ends up bribing Fred for 3 Scooby snacks, and he ends up doing it, And we get a funny set piece of Scooby dealing with a magician's hat that squirts water in his face and has a rabbit pulled out of the hat, so that was fun. He discovers everything is okay, and the gang enters to find tons of clues, as the gang finds a Solomon 2 box, disappearing cabinets, levitation tables, and other items commonly used in magic acts. The gang believe they have figured it out, specifically Velma thinks that she has figured out what's been going on, but the gang encounter the Phantom once more after they hear someone coming, and they run into another room, and they don't hear the footsteps anymore, but the Phantom ends up chasing them all around the castle. We even get an interesting scene of Shaggy in the Solomon 2 box. And how this Phantom could have made a dummy Shaggy head is beyond me. There is no possible way this Phantom could have made a dummy head of Shaggy. It's just impossible. He didn't know that they were going to come to the castle. He didn't even know how long they were going to be there. Does he have dummy heads of the rest of the gang too? It makes zero sense. And also, there's an actual levitating carpet that Fred and Daphne use. I don't know why they thought that would work, but somehow it does. And after they all have escaped the Phantom, they decide that it's time to prepare their next trap. So the gang start preparing the next trap. With the items they're going to use in the trap are a suit of armor, a crossbow, a cannonball, and an old spring. Now, unlike the previous 2 episodes, where the first episode they kind of just caught the Black Knight on a whim, and they caught Captain Cutler by luring him with noise, this time Scooby is the bait for the trap, and he's costumed in a beige coat, a mustache, and a black hat. Now, it's a very, very weird getup, because Shaggy asks Fred, how are we gonna know the Phantom's gonna chase Scooby Doo? He's a dog. And Fred's like, don't worry, I have an idea. And Fred really should have just said, Scooby's been chasing us. Scooby's been chased by the Phantom the entire episode. He'll come and chase him. Because he has. He's been chasing the entire gang. Why does Scooby need a getup to lure the Phantom? The Phantom has already been chasing Scooby all around the castle, including the rest of the gang. So this getup is completely pointless, and Scooby looks like fucking Inspector Clouseau with that outfit. He even, but instead of getting Scooby snacks too, bribing for Scooby snacks again, Scooby just goes because he tries to believe that he's John Wayne. That's not fair. Like, come on, guys. Just give Scooby snacks. I mean, it's a neat idea, but they should have just given Scooby snacks. That would have been more fair. I know they did it earlier in the episode, but they could have done it twice. The Phantom is lured into the trap, and Scooby accidentally gets caught in it too because he isn't looking and trips over the wire that the ghost was supposed to trip over. And Scooby captures the ghost by falling on top of him. And I like the final chase scene of the episode. I think it's fun. I think it showcases all the why Scooby is so much fun in this episode. He has a lot of funny set pieces, but him mocking the Phantom and getting him to chase him was really fun. And it's just bizarre seeing Scooby in this Inspector Clouseau getup, kind of believing that he's John Wayne, and just having the Phantom chase after him. And the trap is elaborate too. I really like the trap. It's really cool.
You have escaped me.
Get ready! Here they come! Jump, Scooby!
Oh no! Scooby tripped into our trap!
Now you will not escape me.
We caught the Phantom, thanks to Scooby Doo.
Whoa.
The gang unmasked the ghost and discovered that the culprit is the ex-magician Bluestone the Great. We never saw Bluestone the Great before this point, and he has to be explained by the officers who he is. He came to Haunted Isle to find the hidden, fabled Vasquez treasure. Apparently there's a legend that there's Vasquez treasure in the Vasquez castle, and so he used all his magic tricks to scare anyone away while he was searching for the treasure. So the gang discovered that Bluestone floated using wires, but they still didn't know how he was able to walk through walls, and Bluestone, being a pretty good sport, he didn't have to explain this. He could have just been quiet and not even answered their question. But he says that it was one of his best acts, and the police allow Bluestone the chance to perform his walking through walls trick, which he performed using a projector and trick mirrors. The explanation for how Bluestone did what he did was very far, a bit of very far-fetched, if I'm being quite honest. Like, the wires, like, how would the gang not notice these wires on all this kind of stuff? And the walking through walls trick, like, how would the gang not notice the projector using the trick and the trick mirrors, him using that? Like, I just feel like the gang would have seen these things. Like, he's a good magician, sure, but I just find it impossible that the gang didn't see any of this stuff. You're telling me they saw no wires or none of this projector and trick mirrors act? I find that very hard to believe, and while it's a nice explanation, and I appreciate that they went to explain it, I do still think it's a bit of a stretch and a little far-fetched, and it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. There's just so many instances where the gang should have been able to notice this stuff. But regardless, the episode ends with Scooby searching for the hidden treasure, but instead, he finds Gopher. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 3 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? 2 stars out of 5. So yeah, my opinion on the episode hasn't really changed much. It just has gone up like 1 star. But I pretty much hold a similar standard to where, yeah, this episode isn't good. I don't consider it good. And my stance hasn't really changed on that. It's just that I found a few more positives in the episode than I originally talked about in my original review. So we'll start off with those positives, and to start the positives, I thought most of the gang were good, besides Shaggy, and I'll get on to why in a minute, and I really hate that I have to say that, but I thought Fred was a good leader in this episode. I felt like he helped for the mystery. He helped lead the gang all the way, and he created another cool trap, so I really enjoyed that. He also helped piece together the mystery, too, by, looking at the clues and being like, and agreeing with Velma, him and Velma being on the same terms. Like, yeah, I think we have the idea of who this may be. Daphne was good. I like that she helped find a clue, with the book, which led to, finding the catacombs where the key was, and to helping, forward the mystery. And she got to be her usual damsel in distress by falling through a trapdoor and almost being catched by the Phantom, but barely missed by him. And she almost gave Shaggy a concussion or head damage. So she definitely was memorable in this episode just for that. And I'm really not happy that Daphne almost did that, but thankfully Shaggy was okay. So Velma was good. I thought she helped piece together the mystery. She did her usual shtick. She did her bare minimum. She looked at the clues, figured it out, and she knew where to go next. And finally, I thought Scooby was pretty funny in the episode. I actually loved the hilarious set pieces he would be on. He would steal Shaggy's food. The set piece with the crab on the beach. The magician set piece where he was like with a magician's hat. The shenanigans with the ghost at the end, and during the chase. There was a lot of hijinks with Scooby. And Scooby was pretty funny in this episode. I thought his shenanigans were pretty funny, and I fell for him in this episode. And he got to be the bait for the trap. He helped catch the Phantom by being the bait for the trap. I didn't like that they didn't give him Scooby snacks and that he had to he basically had to pretend he was somebody else and be in this Inspector Clouseau type of outfit. But regardless, he was pretty brave to do that, and did a good job luring the Phantom into the trap. He helped capture him at the end when the trap didn't work, and he had a lot of funny set pieces. So I enjoyed Scooby the most, I think, in this episode. He was fun. Next, I found the setting of the episode to be pretty good, if I'm being quite honest. Vasquez Castle was a nice change of pace. I think this was the first time we had a haunted house or haunted, castle or mansion, whatever type of setup. Because the previous two were the first one was in a museum, and the second one was in multiple locations, but specifically the Graveyard of Ships. This time around, we have a usual Scooby Doo setting, and this is the first time they do it with a haunted castle. And I thought Vasquez Castle was pretty cool. It had some cool skulls lying around, and dusty rooms and furniture to hammer home that this was an old place, and and set up the spooky vibe. And, the magician stuff as well, which helped point towards the ghost not being an actual ghost. So I liked the setting. I felt it added, it added to the episode. It was the primary reason I found any spook factor, any spooky factor in this episode, any, creepiness, because of the way the setting was used. I liked the mystery of the episode. I thought that was pretty good. You wanted to know why, so the mystery was, why was the Phantom so hell-bent on getting them off the island? You didn't know why until the very end, when we learned that it was for the treasure of Vasquez the Pirate. So I really liked the mystery. I thought it was a good hook. I felt the gang were curious as to why this ghost didn't want them on this island, and, and it was a good enough mystery. It helped serve the episode well. I thought it worked. I thought it was great. And finally, I thought the clues were pretty good in this episode and helped point towards the gang. Helped point the gang toward where they needed to go next. It helped. It helped the gang point towards where to go next. You had the big key with the inscription on it, which told them about the catacombs, which is where all the magician stuff was. The magician stuff was also a good amount of clues, since it showed that the ghost was not real. Since clearly, why would a ghost have a magician stuff if he was real? So I thought the clues were pretty good. They helped serve the episode. They didn't really help point to the suspect, probably because there was no suspects at all. But it did help for the mystery, help point towards the gang, point the gang towards where they needed to go next. So I thought the clues did what they needed to. Now let's get on to the negatives of the episode and what brings this episode down for me. And we'll start off with probably my biggest gripe, and the one thing that honestly could make this episode just bad in general and make it a 1. I didn't like how Shaggy was utilized in this episode. It's not that Shaggy didn't have humor or was cowardly in the episode. He did have some humor in the episode. He had Scooby stealing a sandwich, the coin joke with the Phantom, the magic, saw him in 2 box type of thing, the ham sandwich. There's a lot of interesting bits, right, with Shaggy, and he had some fun little moments. He also was very cowardly in the episode, but was brave as well, a little bit. But if I'm being honest, I felt overall that I didn't get a sense that Shaggy was written well. He wasn't given enough moments to shine, both humor-wise and to show his cowardness or anything else. It just felt like Shaggy was a background character in this episode, and I really wasn't impressed with what the writers had Shaggy do in this episode. I just felt like Shaggy was not utilized well. I wouldn't say he was useless. I just felt like that he wasn't given much to do and didn't fulfill what he should do, which is be, get a lot of fun, humorous moments. Like Scooby. Scooby had a lot of fun, humorous moments. Shaggy had, like, some small ones, but they weren't enough to make this episode really good for him. And while he was, and he was cowardly and stuff, but we never got to see him, them showcase that more. And the rare second he was brave, they didn't showcase that either. Besides, like, one scene, like with Fred and Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby being brave. That was like one scene of Shaggy being brave, but then that was it. So it's like it just felt like Shaggy was a background character and was not written well in this episode and wasn't given much to do and wasn't given many moments to shine. So for that, I really hate this episode for making me not pleased with how Shaggy was done in this episode. And Shaggy is my favorite character, so already just him being not good is enough for this episode for me to not really like this episode at all, because, like, I don't like when my favorite character is not utilized well, and Shaggy unfortunately wasn't. I had to come to terms with that. I just could not find standout things for Shaggy in this episode, and I just felt like he was a background character. So that's, like, probably my hugest negative, is that I just don't like how they utilize Shaggy in this episode. Next, we have the villain of the episode, the Phantom of Vasquez Castle. People have tried to defend him, but if I'm being honest, he's lame. He is a lame-ass sheet ghost. The Phantom of Vasquez Castle is the perfect example of how not to do a Scooby Doo villain, because he was so obviously fake. It was a lame-ass sheet ghost. I could tell it was him over with the sheet over him. And while his laugh was somewhat entertaining, there was not much good about him. He wasn't scary or threatening or menacing at all. The setting really helped a little bit, but he didn't have much going for him at all. He was not scary or threatening or menacing, and he wasn't fun or entertaining to watch. He was the perfect example of how not to write a Scooby-Doo villain. Like, how to not, make a Scooby-Doo villain. Because he was so generic and basic that it just wasn't good. He was so bland and boring, and I could clearly tell that it was a man in a mask, and they didn't do enough to make him threatening or menacing. So overall, like, my opinion still stands on this villain. He sucks. He's a terrible villain. He's not interesting. He's not fun or entertaining, but he's also not scary or threatening or menacing. He provides no threat to the gang other than meaningless warnings, which he doesn't follow up on, so I feel no sense of danger from him. He's just a terrible villain. Easily the worst so far of Scooby-Doo Who Are You. Might even be probably the worst villain of Scooby-Doo Who Are You. And then we have another problem, which is that outside of costume, we never meet Bluestone the Great at all. Because there's no suspects in the episode, we never meet Bluestone the Great until he's arrested, and even the gang don't know who he is. It's a police officer who has to explain who he is. So, you guys know how I feel about that. I never like when a police officer has to tell the gang who the man behind the mask is. So, already, it's lame. I don't like it. We never get to see Bluestone outside of costume. I didn't like it at all that he was a no-name suspect. I hate when the police have to explain to the gang, about him, because it essentially just makes him a random, crook that, doesn't have any interesting backstory for him. So, yeah, he sucks. Like, we never see him outside of costume, but even when we do get the reveal of him, he's just as terrible in general. He's not good he's not good at all. Then we have the motive of the episode, which I found to be very bland and boring, because it was pretty much he wanted the treasure of Vasquez Castle, but it wasn't an interesting treasure motive. Unlike the last two motives, which had a little bit of an interesting spin on it, to where they weren't just trying to make money, but they were doing inventive ways to make money. This guy just straight up was a plain crook who just wanted to find, you know, a treasure chest full of money. That's essentially what he wanted, and that's a boring money motive in my mind. And I feel like a treasure motive can be done better. It's been done better in later iterations of Scooby Doo, I feel like. So if you're gonna do a treasure motive, at least like have some sort of object that you can use to make money. That at least makes it a little more interesting. But because there's money in the treasure chest, it just ends up being a boring money motive. Something we always see, you know, just plain and boring, just not inventive enough. It doesn't really have much flair to it. It has no flair at all. The lack of suspects in the episode was also annoying too. We get no suspects throughout the entire episode. It's literally just the gang searching this castle, dealing with this ghost. We never find anybody who's a suspect, and so automatically that sucks because we have no chance to guess who the villain is. It's like, even though the clues point towards a magician, we never meet a magician beforehand or any guy that could be a magician. So it's pointless because we never meet anybody before that. And finally, I found the atmosphere of the episode to be pretty non-existent. While the setting was cool and all and helped the creep factor a little bit and the music helped a little bit, there was no tension or suspense at all going through this castle because the Phantom just made baseless threats that he never followed through with. He never tried to tried to push it a little bit further to make it so we could actually believe that he was a viable threat. So in my mind, like, the atmosphere isn't good because the villain doesn't help contribute to it. And despite the setting being good and all, it doesn't do enough to enhance the atmosphere at all. Sure, there's a couple, it's a little bit creepy and it's kind of cool, but there's nothing really scary or filled with tension or suspense while investigating this castle. I feel like there's nothing really scary about it. The gang are just going through this old decrepit castle, which could potentially be scary and could be dangerous or threatening, but it isn't because the villain doesn't help with it and there's no natural tension or suspense from anything. So honestly, in my mind, there's no atmosphere in this episode. I feel no tension or suspense because the gang just get baseless threats from this boring ghost, and they're not even afraid of him. They try to tackle him at one point, so that just showcases how unscared they are of this villain. Overall, guys, I would not recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It has a couple of good elements, but overall, it's very weak, it's very bland and boring. Not a good episode. I could see why not many people enjoy this episode. And while I know it has a minority of fans, I just personally don't see anything that makes this episode good. So props to those fans out there that like Castle in the Castle, but for me, I find it a weak and bland and boring episode that just quite frankly is lacking a lot, and especially with villain-wise, atmosphere-wise, the villain's motive, outside of costume, and especially the treatment of Shaggy. Didn't like it at all. Terrible episode. Worse than the previous two. I would not recommend it at all. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you think I'm being too harsh on it? If so, you can tell me, why you like this episode so much. Do you hate this episode like me? Do you think it's like a disappointing episode, not really a good episode that does a lot of things wrong and isn't a good one of the better episodes of the original series? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you think it's okay, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, I will have plenty more Scooby Doo content on the way, obviously for my 2024 summer special. So there'll be plenty more Scooby content on the way for you guys, so stick around and subscribe if you like, my updated thoughts for these Where Are You episodes. But you also like that I'm reviewing the new Scooby Doo movies. I'll be reviewing more Scooby Doo shows down the line, and I want to do it episode by episode. I want to give each episode a chance in the spotlight. as well as other Scooby Doo media. I'm a diehard Scooby Doo fan, so I want to give all Scooby media attention, not just the popular stuff. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my 2024 summer special with a review of Season 1, Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies, which is the Sonny and Cher episode. So if you want to know my thoughts on the Sonny and Cher episode of the new Scooby Doo movies, then tune in next time for that. But after that, we will continue my re-reviews of Scooby Doo Where Are You with Season 1, Episode 4 Scooby Doo Where Are You, Mind Your Own Business, which is the Minor 49er episode. And from what I gather, not many people really like this episode, aren't too high on it, and I believe I wasn't too high on it the first time around, so it doesn't look like things are going to be going up, but it has a second chance, so maybe it might win me over. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby Doo, I see you. Pretending you got a silver. You're not human being, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to solve.